Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this information session on Mansfield's new elementary school. My name is Randy Wallakonis. I'm the chair of the School Building Committee. We're very excited to bring you this update. If I were to briefly summarize the project status, it would be that the design of the new school building, which meets our educational needs and achieves our goals for net zero energy use, is complete, is on budget, and is on schedule. This project began when it became apparent that our educational facilities were aging and in need of upgrades to meet our 21st century learning goals. At the same time, we, like all towns in Connecticut, are experiencing declining enrollment. The Board of Education, with significant input from the community, conducted an analysis of the district educational and facility needs, which led to a recommendation to the Town Council that we build one new pre-K to grade 4 elementary school. The Town Council subsequently created the School Building Committee in 2018 with a charge to select a site, develop a design for the school, and determine the costs for the building project. The community voted at referendum in November of 2019 to go forward with the project. Since then, the Building Committee has overseen the development of the final design of the school and has obtained bids for building the school. We are now about to break ground on the project with the goal of completing the building so students will begin the 22-23 school year all together, just 16 short months from now. Before we go further, I would like to recognize our community members who are serving on the School Building Committee. They have been meeting regularly for the past 3 years and have contributed much time and careful thought to this project. The committee includes Chris Kiefner, Mary DeVecchis, Rich Weil, Chris McNabo, Madison Day, Steve Farino, Chair of the Board of Education, Kathy Ward, and from the Town Council, we had Mayor Paul Shapiro prior to the referendum, and then more recently, Mayor Tony Moran. I want to thank each of these members for their contributions to this project. It has been a genuine pleasure to work with them. The Building Committee wanted to be sure that the new building, first and foremost, meets our educational needs. Providing a space that supports forward-looking educational practices where educators and students can fulfill our educational mission is what this project is all about. We were also very committed to making this a net zero energy school building, the first in the state of Connecticut. As an aside, as a result of this project, other communities in Connecticut have become interested in building net zero energy schools, and they are watching our project with great interest. So we anticipate energy efficiency and sustainability benefits that extend beyond our community because of this project. Ultimately, though, this new school reflects the values of our community and will be an investment from which our town will benefit for decades to come. I'd like to introduce our speakers for this presentation. In just a bit, we'll hear from Jeff Brown, architect from TSKP Studio, the architectural firm that we hired to design the building. Jeff will show and describe the design and features of the new school. We will then hear from Scott Pellman, our project manager from Collier's Project Leaders, on timeline and budget aspects of the project, and from Ryan Ailsworth, Mansfield Town Manager, who will have some closing thoughts on the school project. Up next, though, I would like to introduce Kelly Lyman, Superintendent of Mansfield Public Schools, who will talk about the educational aspects of this project. Kelly?
Good evening, Randy, and thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and so excited to be able to talk with you all this evening about Mansfield's new elementary school. As Randy said, this started some time ago, and it's just amazing to think about all the work that has occurred in the last 3 years and where we are today. So just pull up some slides and give you a little bit of additional information about the work that's gone on in the 3 years that we've been in this planning process for this new school. This slide shows you a quick thumbnail of the timeline of events starting in January of 2017, even before the School Building Committee was formed. The Board of Education undertook their important responsibility of studying our facilities to help us understand not just the condition of our facilities, but the degree to which our facilities were supporting the educational needs of our students. Throughout this project, our focus has been to ensure that we are meeting the full educational needs of students, That includes their academic needs as well as their social, emotional, and physical needs of young children. So you can see that there have been many steps along the way. The first thing that we did when we undertook the facility study is that we asked the company district management group who was conducting the study for us to help us assess the strengths and perhaps the limitations of our current facilities. They spoke to over 120 people in our community, engaged them in a variety of activities to, as well as touring our facilities and meeting with our students. And they summarized our strengths and limitations in this way, that while we had talented, innovative staff, an abundance of opportunities for students, and a real commitment to building our teacher capacity across the district, they also saw that we had begun to experiment with more flexibility in our elementary schools through the physical arrangement and furnishings, and at the middle school through scheduling, and in fact that we had put some sustainability systems in place. They also recognized that the current learning spaces were really not that well equipped to support the development of Mansfield's educational goals for students. There was much more that could be done environmentally to ensure that our buildings were as sustainable and kind to the environment as possible, and that the number of buildings and the size of our buildings were not well aligned with our enrollment projections, as our enrollment was expected to decline and in fact has continued to decline. They also helped us identify these goals for the learning spaces, and these goals have directed our work since that time. At each phase of this process, we have returned to these goals and ensured that the work that we're doing meets what we heard from the community back when we did that first facility study. And I will say that while this facility study now was about almost 4 years old, these goals have really not changed. These continue to be our goals. Once we had that facility study, the Board of Ed started the very important work of deciding what to do in order to meet those goals. They engaged the community in multiple ways, including in the winter of 2018, when they had a 2-night program that more than 200 people attended, where we shared information with the community on all of these things that you can see on the screen here, and asked the community to give us feedback, which was gathered in small group sessions. From that feedback, we identified additional priorities. These priorities, along with those goals, have really helped us ensure that we're getting the facility that we want. And it's very important to remind the community now that these priorities have continued, and we are meeting these priorities. We're ensuring that this new building allows us to remain with the educational programming that we have in place currently, and further that the building will act to support the educational programs. They won't be a barrier, they won't detract from it, but the design of the building will actually help us meet those programmatic goals. We also have ensured, as you'll see in a few moments, that this building allows us to maintain a sense of community. It helps our young children to realize that not only are they part of a bigger community, but that they also are part of a very close-knit, small community. And you'll see that in the building design. Another priority was to ensure that we were able to maintain class size guidelines, and we have done that. And I'll explain in a moment why that priority was important and what the implications of that were. We also wanted to make sure that teachers had a voice in this process, and in fact they have throughout the process. And I'll give you some more detail about that as well. And of course, we wanted to design this with sustainability in mind. And as you heard, this will be the first net zero public elementary school in the state. As Randy mentioned, we have a wonderful school building committee that has been meeting every other week for 3 years. My hat's off to this group of very dedicated members of our community who are ensuring that this building is designed and constructed to the wishes and desires of the community. This has really been a tremendous effort and a tremendous amount of work on their part. So my gratitude to every member of this building committee. Working with the Board of Education, the first task was to create a set of educational specifications. And this is a very important and critical step of the design process. It's also the step that allowed the Board of Education to have a voice in ensuring that the building itself continued or was designed in such a way to meet those goals and priorities that I described to you. As educational specifications were developed, we had to share those with the State Office of School Construction Grants and Review. That is the office that, first off, very importantly, is providing us with a significant amount of funding for this project. But that is also the office that ensures that we are meeting all of the state guidelines and regulations for a public school building. As we met with that office, we had to continually go back and make refinements to our educational specifications. For one thing, there are guidelines about the size of the building. Unfortunately, I would say for us, we are not allowed to build a school of the greatest size that we think we could afford. Rather, we need to stay within the guidelines that the state provides us. Those guidelines have to do with a certain amount of square footage per student. And beyond that, there are some allowances that they gave us because of the space that, for example, the geothermal system would take up in the building, and looking at the site and so on. But it was a give and take process with that state office and the Board of Education as those educational specifications were developed. I also want you to know that we maintain the priority of ensuring staff and the community had a voice in this. And as you can see on this slide, we offered interviews to every staff member that the architectural team conducted. We provided EdSpec wish lists to all of our school staff. We held a community meeting for input. We gathered some information from students. And throughout the EdSpec development process, we made a commitment to maintaining our class size guidelines, which, by the way, are slightly smaller than what the State Office of School Construction considers the guidelines for an elementary classroom, meaning that we need slightly more classrooms than some other communities might have developed. But it was important to us that that be the #1 priority, that we maintain our class size guidelines. We also ensured that we could maintain our current programming. Again, Mansfield students have a rich program in the arts that does take space in a building. And so we have maximized the use of space to provide for those programs for our students as well. And we wanted to ensure that we met the aspirational goals of the community, that being the net zero design. And when you hear from the architect this evening, you'll hear a little bit more about what that means to the design of this building. And of course, we wanted to ensure that this was a building that felt child friendly, and that we maintain the small feel that our children enjoy now in their smaller elementary schools. This school has been designed to support our efforts to educate the children of Mansfield for their future. We believe we are educating them for a future in which the skills defined in our Portrait of the Graduate will be more important than ever. And the facility does matter. Not only will our students have the opportunity to learn in a bright new building, lots of natural lighting, lots of clean open spaces, but it's a building that also is future focused in its design and allows us the flexibility for today and tomorrow. There are spaces for children to move, there are spaces for children to collaborate and to create together, and there are spaces for children inside and outside to make this building and this site their own. And I'm incredibly thrilled at the opportunities that we will have as we transition into this new elementary school. As you heard, we are transitioning now into what I call the construction and transition process. And again, there are a set of priorities that will be guiding us through the next 16 months. Because this school will be constructed on the site of another school, one of the things that we're committed to is ensuring that there's minimal disruption to the operations of Southeast School, or any other school for that matter, as we begin to plan for the transition. We see next school year as being one that's filled with many transition activities to support children, to support families, and to support our teachers and staff, so that when it comes time for all of us to be together under one roof, we're ready to do so. And throughout the way, we will be sure to provide regular updates to the community. So at this time, I would like to turn the screen over to Jeff Brown. Jeff Brown is an architect at TSKP Studios. I'd like to again express my thanks to another great organization, Tai-Soo Kim Studios, the architectural firm out of Hartford that has worked with us both in the pre-referendum phase and in this final design and construction process, have been fabulous to work with. They have allowed us to really drive the bus when you talk about what you want in a school, and they certainly have been very respectful of our priorities. So Jeff, nice to have you here this evening, and take it away.
Thank you, Kelly. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Brown, an architect at TSKP Studio. I'm also a member of your community, and my children went through the Mansfield school system. If I can share my screen. So here, let's start with the site. Let me just go to the next slide here. Hold on a second. All right, so here's the site as it is today. We have Warrenville Road, Route 89 to the west, Southeast Elementary School to the southwest, playgrounds and paved play further southwest. We have the Parks and Rec ball fields to the north. The Pine Forest is to the east, and the ropes course to the south. We also have some trails that link up to the east of the site as well. As we think of the building fitting into the site, we look for opportunities for outdoor spaces that can be transitions from the built world to the natural world. And I think this site gave us a lot of opportunities for that. So we look at the site as proposed. Again, we have Warrenville Road on the left or to the west. We have the new elementary school to the south and to the east. The new ball field, multi-purpose field, playgrounds, and paved play to the southwest. We have the pine forest and trails to the east. The ropes course again to the south. We also have rain garden to the east. We have some outdoor activity and learning gardens to the southeast. If we zoom in a little closer at some of the potential of these outdoor learning spaces, these are gardens that are transitions from the learning that happens inside to the learning with the natural world outside. And from day one, this was a pretty important thought regarding the forest and the connections to the forest. So some of these spaces, some examples, for instance, we'll have some raised planters, a work table, a storage box, compost bins, some log seating, a variety of different surface textures. In this case, we'll have crushed granite surfacing. And you'll see some birdhouses, a composting examples, etc. We also have some different kinds of educational play, which is more common, playground equipment. But we saw an opportunity to introduce some musical components, such as a kettle drum, chimes, so that little ones can play with tone, rhythm, and explore their musical creativity with the instruments. We also have a very elaborate relocated Vinton playground equipment for grades 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We use manual and digital tools to explore massing, and orientation. This is a large model from the west showing the kindergarten and pre-K house to the right, the entry canopy and the gymnasium to the left. While taking advantage of the sloping site, we have grades 1 through 4 in houses beyond. So as we go inside, I'll take you through the floor plan. Now note that the furniture that's shown is just as a test fit. We're still making decisions on the furniture. But as you can see, the main entrance here underneath the canopy is adjacent to the Learning Commons and makerspace. Across the main corridor is the administrative wing. The pre-K K house is on this side of the building, the west side. We have the first grade house or second grade house, depending on how the district wants to position the different grades. And we have a second grade house here. In between is some mechanical storage, restrooms, world language, OTPT. We have some special ed classrooms scattered throughout as well. Now, as important in the discussion early on of the outdoor connections and the potential of the learning programs to happen in those transition spaces, we're also looking inside the building at the potential of different breakout conditions. So the teachers can take a class or group of students out and they can do a different kind of learning and teaching. And adjacent to some of those breakout spaces in each of the houses, actually all of them, we have a teacher's workroom where the teachers can collab, brainstorm, and get creative with each of the different houses and the activities of those houses. So here's an interior shot as you come in through the main entry. You see we actually pay a lot of attention to natural light. Here we're introducing wood, glulam, and exposed wood ceiling, holding the memory of the forest adjacent to this to the building. Here's an example of indoor daylighting in a typical kindergarten classroom, again with some exposed wood framing and drawing light deep into the educational spaces, which is proven to inspire the teachers to teach and the students to learn. Here is the lower level plan as you come down the stairs, the main staircase. We have music and art down here. We have the third grade house, the fourth grade house. We have the gymnasium, and we have a common area here, which is somewhat flexible, the cafeteria, and potentially an art program element here, but it's highly flexible, this space. So again, we have some common areas, the cafeteria and art, and similar relationships here with the breakout spaces and the teacher workrooms. Each house has one. So it could be a very active area within the school. This is the view of the cafeteria, that flexible space from that main entry balcony or mezzanine. Again, exposing the wood ceilings, glulam timber frames, drawing in as much natural light through the clear stories to increase the drama of the spaces. Now, we talk about the forest adjacent and trees and the wood in the school. We also think about how the building relates to wayfinding in the school. So what we've done is held open the space conceptually of the common area, which is the cafeteria flexible space, and through some wayfinding color schemes, each house can represent its own color and they come together in the communal space. So what we're trying to do here is that as the trees branch out, they lead to each house in the common area. There's a diversity of trees. All houses are represented. The pattern is inspired by the trees. We're not saying we're going to paint the trees outside, but we're gathering some inspiration from art and color. So here's a study of how that would look inside the cafeteria space. Again, this ties all the horizontal elements together. The columns could potentially become trees playing off the verticality of the atrium space. Wayfinding in terms of each house having a different color coming together, accumulating in the common space. An example of how we would disperse that color throughout. Now, while we're thinking of that, we also are thinking about efficiency measures for net zero. So here's a list of what we've been using as a control in the design to make sure that we hit all these components, and we have. But also I'd like to say the design for the new school includes safeguards against future pandemics, including new ventilation systems, a higher level of air filtration, ultraviolet light to disinfect the air as it passes through, and the ability to automatically flush air out of the building on a regular basis. We have cleanable surfaces and touchless plumbing fixtures. So given that this will be the first state of Connecticut public school implemented in net zero, we have to look at things like geothermal, ground source heat pumps. These are closed systems, so the blue arrows pointing to where on the site we would have those geothermal wells. And a net zero energy school produces as much energy as it uses on the site. So we've achieved that. That's one element. The other element is photovoltaics. So we saw how much we could fit on the roof. And we have almost 500 kW on the roof. And I believe this EUI has gone down since then, which the lower the number, the better. We've also done a series of daylight analysis with our consultants. They have a modeling software that does this. They checked at various stages in the process of designing this building. We wanted to be very conscious of where the building is oriented. At the same time, having views out of the classrooms, views towards the forest, views towards the educational programming outside. So you can imagine the complexity of trying to balance not having a very efficient box, but allowing the excitement of the houses to sort of have their own distinct identities within the umbrella of the school, breaking down the scale for the children. So those studies actually helped us in the design. In this case, were to put the horizontal sunshades on the south to make sure that we get light drawn deep in the space without a lot of glare. Our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing consultants, as well as our net zero consultants, used energy modeling software for our school to see how it performs at various stages in the design. So it was a give and take in the whole process to make sure we were meeting all the criteria for the net zero school. Here's a main entry rendering. You'll see a one-story building from the road. The gym is on the left. Kindergarten classrooms are on the right. We used as much natural materials as we could. We have wood and we have zinc. We also work in large-scale models, testing out sectional relationships on the topography, orientation, and physically get an understanding of detailing. So this is a view from the west, northwest, looking at the kindergarten pre-K wing here, entry canopy, main entrance, secondary entrance here to this part of the wing. We have a gymnasium here, which is taking advantage of the sloping site and the two-story part of the school back here. Again, taking its cues from the site. This is a view from the north at the main entry where the bus drop-off is, and a view from the east. Again, back to the rendering of the main corridor. We always try to do layered spaces where there are varieties of accents in terms of natural lighting, compressed spaces, release spaces. So it should be a very, very interesting spatial progression through the school. Here's a shot again looking down at the classroom with the library on the left, and you have world language, OTPT in those rooms on the right, the cafeteria below, kitchen behind. Again, typical classroom. So with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Pellman with Colliers to discuss, among things, the schedule. So let me see if I can stop the share.
Tasha, if you can hear me, can you unlock the video? Well, hopefully everyone can hear me. Good evening. My name is Scott Pellman, Senior Project Manager from Colliers Project Leaders. And, as you can see from what Jeff just presented and what Kelly's described as far as the process, the team's been very busy, over the last year. And I think everyone's very, very excited to finally get this project moving forward into the construction phase. So some people certainly know what an architect does, and Kelly and her role as far as leading the school system. But what an owner's project manager does is we're your advocate. We handle the day-to-day activities. We support Kelly. We're the advocate on site, taking the load off the superintendent's shoulders, the principal, so they can focus on their jobs, what they need to do. Everyone at the town can focus on the jobs and what they need to do. From the start, what we do is we assist in hiring people like Jeff, like the architect, the estimators, the commissioning agent, who's going to be critical in making sure that the building is built correctly so we achieve the net zero status, materials testing laboratories, coordinating movers, stormwater inspections, so all the critical consultants you need to monitor, develop, and create this beautiful school. We develop all the contracts. We want to make sure that there's no holes in those contracts, and it's what we specialize in. So, we don't want to have a consultant come back and say, that wasn't in my contract. That's not acceptable to us. And, our whole goal is cost, quality, and schedule. We're here to make sure that you get everything you deserve, that we minimize change orders, minimize additional expenses, protect your valuable tax dollars. You're still contributing a little more than 35% of this overall project. That's a significant project in output of community funds. And, a big part of our job is to protect that and to make sure that you get every bit that you deserve. So with that, from the start, once we got all the consultants hired and through the process, there was a number of steps where we developed project budgets. We hired an estimator, the architect had an estimator, and through each one of those steps, we looked at the budget very, very closely and to make sure that we were on budget. Recently, the project's been bid. And we're happy to say there were 7 bids that came in for the project, 4 of which were under budget, and 3 of those were within 1% or a little less than 1% of each other. So, we've had a lot of other construction managers, a lot of buzz within the building community. That's a very rare event. And I think what that does is it states volumes on what this entire process has been, with all the checks and balances, with the architect, with the building committee, all the oversight and the consultants that have been reviewing this project. So we're off to a great start, but we certainly want to keep up the momentum and make sure that all the good work that we've done to date continues to move forward. And so that's from a cost standpoint. So we're doing very well. And again, quality, I think the quality of the documents says a lot. Kelly mentioned the Office of School Construction Grants and Review. What we do, we're up there probably 2-3 times a week, or these days on Zoom meetings with them. We understand the state process. We've worked very hard to maximize reimbursement, make sure that, again, the state is chipping in everything that they should be, and we're going to be following that very, very closely throughout the entire process. We review all the invoices. We manage all the contracts. Every payment is made, so we can account for every penny that's spent on this project, and we take it very personally. We're going to be, reviewing every change order, trying to minimize any changes, any additional contract costs once we're under construction. And again, I think, a lot of people hear the stories, well, the bids came in good, but, you got killed in the change orders. Well, that's not going to be acceptable on this job. I know Jeff is very passionate about the quality of the project and making sure that the building is built the way that it should be, as well as we are in the building committee. So be rest assured that you've got a very experienced team that is going to be safeguarding that from a quality and construction standpoint. Let me see, I don't know if I can. I think we're having a little bit of a challenge. Hopefully everybody can see, I think we're trying to get a release of the screen, but hopefully everyone can see my screen. What's on the screen currently is a very high level construction schedule. Again, project is bid. We had a meeting with the contractor on the site yesterday. And we're going to be meeting with the contractor on a bi-weekly basis. It's going to include our principal. We call them owner architect contractor meetings. The superintendent's always invited, building committee chair. But what we do is it's a constant update. We do a 2 to a 3 week look ahead. So we anticipate everything that's going to happen on the site from now, the point where we're getting ready to start construction, all the way through to the end and project closeout. Soon, you'll see some fencing going up on the site. The site is going to be completely fenced off. There'll be no communication from a contractor standpoint between the contractors, the students, and the teachers. The first item on our OAC meetings is always safety. That's priority 1, safety of the students, safety of the staff. All of the contractors on site will go through background checks. Those background checks will be submitted to the town for record. Anyone that doesn't pass a background check is not going to be allowed on the site. All of the contractors will check in every morning at the contract trailer, be signed in, and they'll also have badges that are going to be visible for all staff and everyone on site, to make sure that if somebody is on site from a contractor standpoint, that we know who they are and they're supposed to be there. We've set aside 16 months to construct the new school. Later this summer, before the kids come back, the portable classrooms that are on the end of the building will be coming down. Be working again through construction all the way through until next August. As soon as the students are out in June, it's going to get quite active. You're going to see the demolition of the existing Southeast School coming down, paving parking lots. And then into the fall, the contractor is going to be, finishing up the site, plantings, grass. We're with such a tight timeline in trying to get the school ready and open for the fall of 2022. There will be a few things that'll happen into the fall, little bit of the spit and polish, a little bit more of the paving and things. But, we'll make sure that the school itself is complete. The building itself is ready, is safe. And again, we'll work very closely with the contractor to maintain those safety protocols with fencing and all. So again, I hopefully that, my portion of the evening is put your minds a little bit at ease that we've got a great team watching out for the project. We've done some wonderful work to date. We're very excited about the project, about it being net zero. We are under budget, as Randy had stated, and we are on time, and we're going to stay that way. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan Ailsworth, the town manager, for a few closing thoughts. Thank you.
Looks like, Scott, you might have to release your video for your presenter.
I did stop the share, Ryan, so.
Yeah, same thing happened to me.
Yeah, I see the share screen now, but I did release it.
Oh, not sure it's going to let me share my screen, but that's okay. I'll proceed in the interest of time. So, my name is Ryan Ailsworth. I'm the town manager of Mansfield. I've been on the job for about 5 months, and this has been a really exciting time to come to the community and obviously, basically roll my sleeves and become a part of this very exciting project that's going on. There's not necessarily an awful lot more that I can say about this project that hasn't already been said by Kelly or Jeff or Scott. But I do want to touch on a few points, and I want to start by saying that as a father of 3 kids, 3 young kids that will be attending this new elementary school, it's just really exciting to think about the learning experiences that my young children will have alongside so many other children in Mansfield. And so from a personal level, I'm very committed to this project. Mansfield has a reputation as a community with exceptional public schools. This is not something that probably anybody listening at home doesn't already know. But I want to underscore that this new facility, we believe, is really going to reinforce that reputation and send the signal to more and more people that Mansfield is a great place for your family to relocate and for your children to learn and grow. You may already know that Mansfield's brand promise, our new brand promise, is it's your place to grow. And that, of course, has multiple meanings. It has meaning in the sense that it's a great place for a business to relocate and for them to be successful. It's a great place for a family to relocate. But this school is kind of a microcosm of that. It's going to be a great place for your children to grow, for my children to grow, for all our young kids to grow. And we're just incredibly excited about that. This project does come with a significant price tag. Fortunately, 2/3 of the cost of the project is being funded by the state. But I want to underscore that we really shouldn't be thinking about this project in terms of cost. This really is an investment in our future, our community's future, and one that'll have a multi-generation impact moving forward. You've heard a lot tonight about the environmental sustainability aspects, the energy efficiency, the net zero building. We are very, very excited that this will be, we believe, the first net zero public school in the state of Connecticut. Very excited about how the use of natural building materials will reinforce the rural qualities, the natural setting of the school, and of course, all the natural light that Jeff in particular spoke about. We'll make this a very attractive building, a very attractive, very attractive classrooms, just a wonderful setting for kids to learn, for teachers to teach, and parents to feel good about where their kids go to school every day. The next steps of the project, Scott laid out. There are a couple things, additional things I wanted to touch on briefly. In particular, those two things being, what about the other two schools? I know questions periodically are posed about what's the future for Goodwin and Vinton Elementary schools. And those are, of course, very good questions, very important questions to answer. Long story short, we're going to be doing a pretty comprehensive needs assessment, looking at those facilities, evaluating them for potential future uses. In the short term, there are a lot of different things that they can be used for in terms of quote unquote swing spaces, as spaces needed with other construction projects that are ongoing. But long term, the future of those schools is still being determined, and want to make sure that our residents know that those are questions that we're going to be dogged in pursuit of the answer to. I want to also, if I can share my own screen, hopefully successfully here. Hopefully you can see my screen. We set up an email account, newschoolinfo@mansfieldct.org. Any questions or comments that members of the public have about the project, we strongly encourage you to send those to this email. There's, of course, other ways that you can reach out and communicate your thoughts and questions, but this email account that we set up is a great way for you to do that. We want to thank not just the school building committee and school building committee members, of course, being residents of the community who've devoted many, many hours to help inform the design of the new building, but also all the residents and staff and other members of the community at large that have helped inform this project. It really does take a village for an effort of this magnitude, and we hope that everybody feels that you have a sense of shared ownership of this project and what it's going to mean for our community. We want you to watch for details on our groundbreaking for the project. As Scott alluded to, we expect groundbreaking to take place officially really in a matter of days and weeks. And we're hopeful, fingers crossed, that we can make the technology work. We'd love to get a live webcam feed out there so that people can tune in at any time and see the latest status of the project. And maybe we'd be able to do something neat at the end of that in terms of compiling it all together into a time-lapse video segment so that you can see this major project unfold before your very eyes in a matter of minutes. We're also going to be propping up a new website for the project to help residents monitor its progress. So again, in closing, I just want to say, please do reach out with any questions or comments you have. This is your school. It's not our school. It's all of our school. And, as the parent of three young kids, couldn't be more excited about the learning opportunities that lie in front of them. And just want to thank you all for listening in tonight and for being a part of this important process. So thank you.